Jake Miller sat in the back seat of his mom's car, watching the trees blur past the window. The weekend trip home had ended early when his aunt called to cancel Sunday dinner. Something about her cat getting sick. Jake did not mind much. He had a big test on Monday anyway. "You sure you don't want to stay another night?" his mom asked, looking at him in the mirror. "No, it's fine. I should study tonight," Jake said. He pulled out his phone to text his roommate Zex that he was coming back early. The phone showed no new messages. Zex had said he would be visiting his family this weekend too. Something about his uncle being in town. Jake had always thought it was weird how Zex never talked much about his family. In 2 years of being roommates, Jake had never seen any photos or gotten many details. The car pulled up to Jake's apartment building. He grabbed his duffel bag and waved goodbye to his mom. The building was quiet on Sunday evening. Most students were either still away for the weekend or studying in the library. Jake climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Their apartment was at the end of the hall, number 312. He had shared the space with Zex since sophomore year. They got along well enough. Zex was quiet but friendly. He helped with rent and never left dirty dishes around. That was more than Jake could say about some of his friends' roommates. Jake pulled out his keys and unlocked the door. The apartment was dark, which made sense if Zex was still gone. Jake flipped on the light switch in the small entrance hall. "Zex, you back yet?" he called out just in case. No answer. Jake dropped his bag by the door and walked toward his room. He needed to get his books and start studying. But as he passed the living room, he heard a strange humming sound coming from Zex's bedroom. Jake stopped. The sound was low and steady, like a machine running. Maybe Zex had left his computer on or something. But it sounded different from any computer Jake had ever heard. The humming got louder. Now there were other sounds too. Soft beeping noises and what sounded like water moving. Jake felt curious, and maybe a little worried. What if someone had broken in? He walked slowly toward Zex's room. The door was closed, but light was coming from underneath it. Not normal light, though. This light was blue and seemed to move and shift. Jake put his ear against the door. The sounds were clearer now. Definitely machines running, and that water sound was more like bubbling. Like a fish tank, but much bigger. He should probably leave it alone. Zex would be back soon enough and could explain. But what if something was wrong? What if there was a water leak or a fire starting? Jake turned the door handle slowly. It was not locked. He pushed the door open just a crack and peeked inside. What he saw made no sense at all. The room looked nothing like the simple bedroom he knew. The walls were covered with panels that glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols moved across the panels like words on a computer screen, but they were not any language Jake had ever seen. In the center of the room stood a tall glass tube, about the size of a phone booth. It was filled with thick glowing liquid that moved like honey, and floating in the middle of that liquid was Zex. But it was not the Zex that Jake knew. The thing in the tube looked like Zex's face and body, but the skin was see-through in places. Jake could see what looked like tiny lights moving under the skin, like Christmas lights under wrapping paper. Thin metal arms moved around the tube, touching different parts of the body with tools that Jake had never seen before. Jake's mouth fell open. His bag of dirty laundry slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a loud thump. Everything stopped. The moving symbols on the walls froze. The metal arms pulled back from the tube. The humming sounds cut off all at once, leaving the room completely quiet. The liquid in the tube began to drain away quickly. As it went down, the thing that looked like Zex opened its eyes. Those eyes looked right at Jake through the glass. Jake could not move. He could not think. He just stood there staring as the tube opened with a soft hiss. The Zex thing stepped out, dripping with the glowing liquid. As Jake watched, the see-through parts of the skin became solid. The tiny lights under the skin faded away. Within seconds, it looked exactly like the Zex that Jake had been living with for 2 years. "Jake," Zex said quietly. His voice sounded normal, but his face looked scared. "You're supposed to be at home until tomorrow." Jake tried to speak, but no words came out. He pointed at the tube, then at the glowing walls, then at Zex. His hand was shaking. "I can explain," Zex said, but he did not sound like he really wanted to. "What?" Jake finally managed to say. "What are you?" Zex looked around the room, which was already starting to change. The glowing panels were folding back into the walls. The tube was sinking into the floor. Within moments, it looked like a normal bedroom again. The only sign that anything strange had happened was the fact that Zex was standing there naked and dripping with glowing goo. "I am your roommate," Zex said, grabbing a towel from his dresser. "Just not exactly the way you thought." Jake sat down hard on Zex's desk chair. His legs felt weak. "Are you even human?" Zex wrapped the towel around himself and sat on his bed. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. "No," Zex said finally. "I am not human." Jake stared at him. 2 years. 2 years of living together, sharing pizza, complaining about tests, watching movies. 2 years of thinking he knew who his roommate was. "Then what are you?" Jake asked. Zex sighed. "That is a very long story. And once I tell you, both of our lives are going to get much more complicated." Jake looked around the room, which now looked completely normal. If he had not seen it himself, he would never have believed it was possible. "I think they already got complicated," Jake said. Zex got dressed while Jake sat in the chair, trying to make sense of what he had seen. The room looked totally normal now. The bed, the desk, the posters on the wall, everything was exactly like it had been for the past 2 years. But Jake knew he had not imagined what happened. "Okay," Jake said when Zex finished putting on his clothes. "Start talking." Zex sat back down on his bed. He looked nervous in a way that Jake had never seen before. "My real name is not Zex. It is something you could not say with your mouth. My people are called the Kithera." "Your people," Jake repeated. "So you are like an alien?" "Yes, I am from a planet very far from here, farther than your scientists think any life could exist." Jake rubbed his forehead. This felt like a dream, but he knew he was awake. "How far?" "About 400 of your light years. In a star system your people have not discovered yet." 400 light years. Jake had learned enough in his science classes to know that was impossibly far. "How did you get here?" "We have technology that lets us travel much faster than light. We have been doing it for thousands of years." Jake stood up and started walking around the small room. Okay, so you are an alien. From space, living in my apartment, taking engineering classes at State University." He stopped and looked at Zex. "Why?" "I am here to study your people, to learn about humans and write reports about what I find." "Study us." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Like lab rats?" "Not exactly. More like anthropologists study different cultures. We want to understand how your civilization works." Jake sat back down. How many of you are there?" "On Earth?" "About 50 of us, spread out in different countries, different cities, all doing the same job. 50 aliens, just walking around pretending to be human." Jake shook his head. "How is that even possible? You look completely human." Zex pointed toward where the strange tube had been. "What you saw, that was a genetic reconstruction chamber. Every month I have to use it to maintain this form. My real body is different. Different how? Taller, different skin, more arms. You would find it disturbing." Jake tried to picture it but could not. "So you just change your whole body to look like us?" "The technology rebuilds me at the cellular level. It is not just appearance. I actually become human in every way that your doctors could measure. My blood, my DNA, everything." "That is impossible." "For your technology, yes. For mine, it is routine." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that scared him most. "How long have you been doing this?" "Studying me? I have been on Earth for 5 years. I have been your roommate for 2 years. So our friendship, is that real, or am I just part of your research project?" Zex looked down at his hands. "At first you were just part of the assignment. I was told to live among humans and observe their behavior. Having a roommate was a good way to do that." Jake felt sick, at first. "But after a few months something changed. I started to actually care about you as a person, not just as a research subject. That was not supposed to happen." "Not supposed to happen?" "My people do not form emotional attachments easily. We are taught that it interferes with objective observation. But humans are different than we expected." Jake stood up again. He felt angry now. "Different how?" "More complex. Your emotions, your relationships, the way you care about things that do not benefit you directly. We thought we understood your species, but living among you has shown me that our assumptions were wrong." "What assumptions?" Zex hesitated. "You will not like this." "Tell me anyway." "We believed that humans were a young, violent species that would probably destroy themselves within a few hundred years. Most of my people think you are not worth making contact with." Jake stared at him. And what do you think? I thought that too when I first arrived. But after living with you with other humans, I am not so sure anymore. Gee, thanks. Jake, you have to understand. We have watched thousands of civilizations rise and fall. Most follow predictable patterns. They develop technology faster than wisdom. They fight wars over resources and beliefs. Eventually, they either destroy themselves or their planet becomes unable to support them. And you think that is what we are going to do? That is what most of my people think. But I am starting to believe they might be wrong. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the campus. Students were walking around, going about their normal lives. None of them knew that aliens were living among them, writing reports about whether humanity deserved to survive. What kind of reports have you been writing about us? Jake asked, honest ones. I write about what I observe. Human wars, environmental problems, social inequality, but also about human creativity, compassion, and the bonds you form with each other. And which side is winning in your reports? Zex was quiet for a long time. Until recently, the negative side. My superiors expect to see evidence that humans are as predictable as every other young species. But now I am not sure what to write. You have shown me things about humanity that do not fit our models. Jake turned back to face him. Like what? Like the way you helped me when I was sick last semester, even though you thought it might be contagious. Like how you spent your own money to buy food for that homeless man we see by the library. Like how you stay up late helping other students with their homework, even when you have your own work to do. Those are just normal things. No, Jake. They are not normal at all. Most species we study only help others when they expect something in return. Humans constantly do things that benefit others at cost to themselves. It is extremely unusual. Jake sat back down. His head was spinning with everything he had learned. So what happens now? Do you turn me into your alien bosses for finding out? No, my people do not hurt humans unless they have to. But this does complicate things. How? Because now you know the truth and I have to decide what to do about it. I could request a memory wipe for you. We have technology that could make you forget this ever happened. Jake felt scared again. But you are not going to do that. No, I do not want to do that. You are my friend, Jake. Maybe the first real friend I have ever had. I do not want to take this away from you, even if it would be easier. So what do? We keep living our lives. I continue my research. You continue your studies, but now you know the truth about what I am and why I am here. And you trust me not to tell anyone? Yes, do you know why? Why? Because telling people would hurt me. And despite everything you just learned, you will not want to do that. It is exactly the kind of illogical, emotional decision that makes humans so interesting to study. Jake realized Zex was right. Even though he felt angry and confused and betrayed, he still cared about his roommate. It did not make logical sense, but he could not help it. This is really messed up, Jake said. Yes, Zex agreed. It is. They sat in silence for a while, both thinking about how everything had changed in the space of an hour. Finally, Jake asked, "What is your real name?" "The one I cannot say." Zex made a sound that was like a whistle mixed with a clicking noise. It was beautiful and completely inhuman. "I will keep calling you Zex," Jake said. "I would like that." Over the next few days, Jake found it hard to focus on anything else. He would sit in class and wonder if any of his other classmates were secretly aliens too. He would look at Zex doing normal things like eating cereal or watching TV, and remember that none of it was real. On Wednesday evening, Jake finally could not take it anymore. "I have questions," he said while they were both studying at the kitchen table. Zex looked up from his physics textbook. "I figured you would. Tell me more about your people." "The Kithera." Zex closed his book. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. How old is your civilization? What is your planet like? Why do you care about studying other species?" "We are very old. Our civilization has existed for about 50,000 of your years. Our planet is colder than Earth with less water. We live mostly in underground cities." 50,000 years, Jake repeated. "That is incredible. By the time your species was learning to farm, we were already traveling between stars. We have seen the rise and fall of hundreds of civilizations across this part of the galaxy. And you just watch them? You do not help them or make contact?" "Usually no. We learned long ago that interfering with younger species often does more harm than good. It is better to observe and understand," Jake frowned. "That seems kind of cold." "Perhaps. But we have seen what happens when advanced species try to guide younger ones. It usually ends badly." "How?" "The younger species becomes dependent. They stop developing their own solutions to problems. They never reach their full potential because they rely on others to solve their challenges. Jake thought about that. But sometimes help is good, right? Like when someone is drowning, you do not just watch and take notes. That is different. That is immediate physical danger. We are talking about the development of entire civilizations over thousands of years. Okay, but what about sharing knowledge? Medical cures, clean energy, ways to prevent wars? Zek shook his head. Every species must find their own path. The solutions that work for the Kithara might not work for humans. And if we gave you our technology, how would you learn to solve problems on your own? Jake was getting frustrated. So you just sit back and watch civilizations destroy themselves because you think it builds character? We watch because we want to understand. Knowledge is valuable for its own sake. But you said most species destroy themselves. Does not that prove your method is not working? Zex was quiet for a moment. It proves that most species are not ready for the challenges of advanced technology, including us. That is what most of my people believe, yes? Jake stood up and started pacing around the small kitchen. So you have been here for 2 years watching us be stupid and violent and doomed, writing reports about how we are going to destroy ourselves just like everyone else. I write about what I observe. And what have you observed? Zex opened his laptop and pulled up a file. Wars in 17 countries. Environmental destruction that continues despite clear evidence of climate change. Political systems that prioritize short-term gains over long-term survival. Massive inequality where some humans have far more resources than they need while others starve. Jake read over the list. It was depressing and accurate. Okay, those things are real problems. They are the same problems we have seen in dozens of other civilizations. The pattern is always the same. But those are not the only things happening on Earth. What do you mean? Jake sat back down. What about the fact that we have international laws against war crimes? What about the millions of people working to solve climate change? What about the charity organizations that send food and medicine to people who need it? Those are small groups compared to the whole population, but they exist. And they are growing. 50 years ago, most people did not even know about climate change. Now it is taught in elementary schools. Zex looked skeptical. But your government still do not do enough to stop it. Because change takes time, especially big changes that affect how entire societies live. But we are changing. Too slowly. Maybe, but we are trying. Does not that count for something? Zex did not answer right away. Jake could see him thinking. Tell me something, Jake said. When your people were 50,000 years younger, were they perfect? Did they never make mistakes or have wars or damage their environment? Of course not. Every species goes through difficult periods. So why do you expect us to be different? Why cannot we have time to figure things out like you did? Because the stakes are higher now. Your technology is more dangerous than ours was at the same stage. You have weapons that could destroy your entire planet. But we have not used them. We came close a few times, but we pulled back. We made treaties to control them. You still have them. Yes. But we also have international monitoring, agreements to reduce them, and a whole generation of people who grew up knowing how dangerous they are. Zex was quiet again, looking at his laptop screen. What else is in your reports? Jake asked. Personal observations. About the humans I interact with daily. About me. Yes. What do you say about me? Zex hesitated. That you are a typical example of human behavior, which means intelligent but not exceptionally so, kind to people you know, but indifferent to strangers, focused on short-term goals like grades and social activities rather than larger issues. Jake felt stung.
That is what you think of me?
That is what I thought when I first started writing about you. And now? Now I realize I was not looking carefully enough. What do you mean? Zex scrolled through his files. I wrote that you were indifferent to strangers. But last month you spent 3 hours helping that lost freshman find his dorm, even though you were late for your own study group. Anyone would have done that. No, Jake. Not anyone. Most people would have pointed him toward the information desk and kept walking. That is just basic decency. Exactly. Basic human decency. Which is not actually basic at all. It is remarkable. Jake was not sure how to respond to that. I wrote that you focus only on short-term goals, Zex continued. But you are studying engineering because you want to design clean energy systems. You talk about wanting to solve problems that will not even affect you personally. So, So most young individuals in most species think only about their immediate needs. Reproduction, status, resource acquisition. You think about abstract problems that will affect people you will never meet? Lots of people do that. No, Jake, they do not. In most species, only the oldest and wisest individuals develop that kind of perspective. You are 22 years old and you already think like someone much older. Jake sat back in his chair. Are you saying humans are different from other species? I am saying you might be, but I am not sure yet. What would convince you? Zex closed his laptop. I do not know. My superiors expect evidence that follows familiar patterns. Humans behaving predictably, making the same mistakes as everyone else. And if you write reports saying we are different, then I would need very strong evidence. The kind of evidence that would convince people who have studied thousands of civilizations. Jake felt a challenge forming in his mind. What if I could show you things about humanity that do not fit your patterns? What kind of things? I do not know yet. But you have been here 2 years and you still think of us as typical. Maybe you have not been looking in the right places. You want to prove that humans are special? I want to prove that humans are human, which might be the same thing. Zex looked at him with an expression Jake had never seen before, something between curiosity and hope. That would be very difficult to do, Zex said, but not impossible. No, not impossible, Jake smiled. Good, because I have some ideas. The next Saturday morning, Jake woke Zex up early. Get dressed, Jake said. We are going somewhere. Where? Zex asked, still half asleep. You will see. Bring old clothes that you do not mind getting dirty. An hour later, they were standing outside the downtown homeless shelter. Zex looked confused. This is where you want to show me humanity at its best? He asked. Just wait, Jake said. They went inside and found the volunteer coordinator, a tired-looking woman named Betty. We would like to help with whatever you need today, Jake told her. Betty looked them up and down. You ever done this before? No, but we learn fast. All right. We are serving lunch in 2 hours and we need help in the kitchen. Can you chop vegetables? For the next hour, Jake and Zex stood side by side cutting carrots and onions for soup. Around them, other volunteers worked quietly. Jake noticed Zex watching everyone carefully. What do you see? Jake asked quietly. People working without being paid, Zex said. I do not understand the motivation. Keep watching. When they started serving lunch, Jake saw Zex's confusion grow. The volunteers treated every person who came through the line with respect and kindness. They remembered names, asked about families, offered extra portions to anyone who looked especially hungry. One elderly volunteer, a man who looked about 70, spent 10 minutes talking to a young mother about her search for work. He gave her phone numbers for job training programs and made her promise to call them. That man, Zex whispered to Jake, he gains nothing from helping her. Right. She cannot repay him. She has no resources, no status, no way to benefit him in the future. Right. So why does he do it? Jake smiled. That is what I want you to figure out. After the lunch service, they helped clean up. Zex was quiet the whole time, but Jake could see him thinking. On the way home, Zex finally spoke. In every other species we have studied, individuals only help others when they expect something in return. Family members, potential mates, allies who might be useful later. And what did you see today? Humans helping other humans for no logical reason. Maybe the reason is not logical. Then what is it? Jake thought about how to explain it. Maybe we help because we know what it feels like to need help. Maybe we do it because it makes us feel good. Or maybe we do it because we think it is the right thing to do. Right according to what? I do not know. Our conscience? Our values? Zex shook his head. Values that tell you to give your time and energy to strangers. That is not evolutionary advantageous. Maybe evolution is not the only thing that drives us. The next week, Jake took Zex to a blood drive on campus, then to a community cleanup day at the local park. Each time, Zex watched humans volunteer their time and effort for causes that did not directly benefit them. But the real turning point came 2 weeks later. Jake was walking to class when he heard shouting from the parking lot. A crowd had gathered around something. As he got closer, he saw that an old pickup truck had caught fire. Black smoke was pouring from under the hood. Someone is inside, a girl yelled. Jake could see a figure slumped over the steering wheel. The driver looked unconscious and the fire was spreading. Without thinking, Jake ran toward the truck. Someone grabbed his arm. Do not be stupid, a guy said. The fire department is coming. Jake shook him off and kept running. The handle of the truck door was hot, but he managed to pull it open. The driver was an older man, probably a maintenance worker. He was breathing but not responding. Jake grabbed the man under the arms and pulled him out of the truck. Other people rushed over to help carry the man to safety. Seconds later, the whole front of the truck was on fire. The man woke up a few minutes later, coughing but okay. By the time the fire department arrived, Jake was sitting on the curb, shaking from adrenaline. That was when he noticed Zex standing in the crowd, staring at him. Later that evening, Zex cornered him in their apartment. "What you did today," Zex said, "that was completely irrational. The guy needed help. You could have been killed. The truck could have exploded. You risked your life for a stranger, so that makes no sense from any logical perspective. You gained nothing. You could have lost everything." Jake sat down on the couch. "Zex, if you had been in that truck, what would you have wanted me to do?" "I would have wanted you to wait for the fire department." "Really?" Zex was quiet for a moment. "No, I would have wanted you to help me." "Even if it was dangerous?" "Yes." "Even if it was not logical?" "Yes." "And if it was some random alien you had never met before?" Zex thought about that. I am not sure, but I am sure. If it was you or that maintenance worker or some alien I had never seen before, I would have done the same thing." "Why?" Jake struggled to find the right words. "Because that is what humans do. We help each other. Not because it makes sense, but because it feels right." "Feels right?" "Yeah. We have this thing inside us that tells us when something is right or wrong, and it tells us to help people who are in trouble, even if we do not know them. All humans have this. Most of us. Not everyone acts on it, but most people feel it." Zex sat down across from Jake. "In my reports, I have been describing this as a weakness, emotional decision-making that overrides logical self-interest. Maybe it is not a weakness, or what else could it be? Maybe it is what makes us strong." "How?" Jake thought about all the examples they had seen over the past few weeks. "Because it means we look out for each other. We sacrifice for people we do not even know. We work together even when we do not have to. But it also means you make poor decisions. You take unnecessary risks sometimes. But it also means we do not give up on each other. We fight for things that matter even when the odds are bad." Zex was quiet for a long time. "My people pride themselves on logical thinking. We make decisions based on evidence and analysis. That is good too. But we do not have what you call conscience. We help others when it benefits us or when it serves a logical purpose. But we do not feel compelled to help strangers. Do you think that makes you better than us?" "I used to think so. Logic seemed superior to emotion, and now? Now I wonder if we might be missing something important." Jake leaned forward. "Like what?" "Like the thing that makes a young human risk his life for an old man he has never met. You think that is important?" "I think it might be the most important thing I've observed about your species." Jake felt a surge of hope. "Important enough to write about in your reports?" Zex nodded slowly. "Important enough to change everything I thought I knew about humans." That night, Jake lay in bed thinking about everything that had happened since he accidentally discovered Zex's secret. He had set out to prove that humans were worth saving. But now he realized he had learned something too. Maybe being human was not about being perfect or logical or advanced. Maybe it was about caring for each other, even when it did not make sense. Maybe that was enough. 3 weeks before the end of the semester, Zex got a message that changed everything. Jake was studying for finals when he heard a strange sound coming from Zex's room. It was like music, but unlike any music Jake had ever heard. When he went to investigate, he found Zex sitting at his desk with a small device that was glowing and making the musical sounds. "What is that?" Jake asked. Zex looked up. His face was serious. "Communication from my superiors. They want my final report." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Final report? Does that mean you are leaving?" "Yes, my mission here is ending. All the observers are being called back." "When?" 2 weeks. Jake sat down on Zex's bed. 2 weeks. After everything they had been through, everything they had learned about each other, Zex was just going to disappear. "What are you going to tell them?" Jake asked. Zex turned off the communication device. "That is what I have been trying to decide." "What do you mean?" "I have written 17 different versions of my final report. Each one says something different about humanity." Jake felt a mix of hope and fear. "What are the options?" Zex pulled up files on his laptop. "Option 1, I confirm what my superiors expect. Humans are a young, violent species following predictable patterns towards self-destruction, not suitable for contact. And option 2, I tell them what I have really learned. That humans are unlike any species we have studied before, that your capacity for illogical compassion might actually be an evolutionary advantage we never considered. Which one are you going to send? Zex was quiet for a long time. The second one could end my career. My people do not like it when their assumptions are challenged, but it is the truth. Truth is relative. There are facts that support both conclusions. Jake stood up and started pacing. Zex, you have lived among us for 2 years. You have seen what humans are really like. You cannot just ignore that because it is inconvenient for your career. It is not just my career. If I am wrong, if humans really are as dangerous as my people believe, then my report could lead to contact being made when it should not be. That could be catastrophic for both our species. And if you are right, if humans are better than your people think, but you report that we are not, then humanity remains isolated. You continue developing on your own without any help or guidance, and is that such a bad thing? Zex looked at him. Your species faces challenges that could destroy your civilization within the next century. Climate change, resource depletion, weapons of mass destruction. Some problems might be easier to solve with help. Jake felt the weight of what Zex was saying. This was not just about their friendship anymore. This was about the future of the entire human race. What would happen if you told them the truth? Jake asked. Best case scenario? A small faction of progressives would argue for limited contact. Maybe we would send cultural ambassadors, share some basic knowledge. And worst case, the council would decide I have been compromised by emotional attachment to humans. They would recall me immediately and send someone else to complete the assessment. Jake sat back down. Someone who would not have spent 2 years getting to know us. Someone who would look only for evidence that confirms existing beliefs. They sat in silence for a while. Finally, Jake asked, "What do you want to do?" Zex smiled sadly. "I want to tell them that my roommate Jake Miller is the bravest, most selfless person I have ever met. That he risks his life for strangers and sacrifices his own interests to help others. That if he is a typical example of humanity, then my people have completely misunderstood your species. So do that. It is not that simple." "Why not?" "Because they will ask for evidence. Proof that Jake Miller represents humanity as a whole, not just an exceptional individual." Jake thought about that. What kind of proof would they want? Documented examples of widespread human behavior that contradicts our models. Statistical data showing that humans consistently act against their own self-interest for the benefit of others. But you have seen that. The volunteers at the shelter, the blood drive, the community cleanup. Small samples. My superiors would say those are outliers. Jake felt frustrated. So what would convince them? Something big. Something that showed human nature at a scale they could not dismiss. That night, Jake lay awake thinking about what Zex had said. Somewhere in the galaxy, an advanced alien civilization was preparing to write off humanity based on incomplete information. They would look at human wars and pollution and decide that Earth was not worth their attention. But they did not know about the volunteers at the homeless shelter. They did not know about the stranger who helped Jake jumpstart his car in the rain last month. They did not know about his mom, who spent every weekend visiting elderly people at the nursing home because she thought they were lonely. The next morning, Jake had an idea. "I want to help you write your report," he told Zex. "Jake, I appreciate the offer, but no, listen. You are right that you need better evidence, but you have been looking at this all wrong." "What do you mean?" "You keep trying to prove that humans are logical or perfect or peaceful, but that is not what makes us special. Then what does? We are not special because we never make mistakes. We are special because we keep trying to be better." Zex looked confused. "I do not understand." Jake pulled out his laptop. "Let me show you something." For the next hour, Jake showed Zex websites and articles and videos that he had never bothered to look at before. Organizations working to solve climate change. International treaties designed to prevent wars. Medical researchers sharing their discoveries freely instead of keeping them secret. Artists and musicians and writers who created beauty just because they wanted to make the world better. "Look at this," Jake said, pointing to an article about doctors who traveled to poor countries to perform free surgeries. These people use their vacation time and their own money to help strangers on the other side of the world. "This is impressive," Zex admitted. But my superiors will say these are still small numbers compared to your total population. But they exist, and they are growing. 50 years ago, there were no international environmental organizations. Now there are thousands. 100 years ago, most countries did not have laws against discrimination. Now most do. You are saying humans are improving. I am saying humans never stop trying to improve. Even when we fail, even when we make terrible mistakes, we keep working to be better than we were. Zek stared at the screen. No other species we have studied shows that pattern. What do you mean? Most species reach a stable state and stay there. They develop their technology and social systems to a certain point and then stop changing. But humans, you never stop changing. Is that good or bad? I am not sure. But it might be the most remarkable thing about your species. That evening, Zex worked on his report while Jake studied. Every few minutes, Zex would ask Jake to explain something or show him more examples of what he was writing about. What are you telling them? Jake asked. That humanity cannot be judged by normal standards because humans are not a normal species. How so? Every other civilization we have studied eventually reaches equilibrium. They solve their basic survival problems and then focus on maintaining stability. But humans seem incapable of equilibrium. You always want more, better, different. That sounds like a criticism. It could be. That same drive causes your wars and environmental problems. But it also drives your art, your science, your social progress. And so which is it? Good or bad? Zek stopped typing and looked at Jake. I think it might be both. And I think that makes you the most interesting species in the galaxy. 3 days later, Zex finished his report. It was 20 pages long and included hundreds of examples of human behavior that defied Cathera models. Are you really going to send it? Jake asked. Yes. Even though it might end your career? Because it might save your species. Zex sent the report that night. The next morning, his communication device started making urgent sounds. What does that mean? Jake asked. Zex looked worried. It means the council wants to talk to me immediately. Is that bad? I do not know. It has never happened before. For the next hour, Zex had a conversation in his own language with beings Jake could not see. Jake could tell from Zex's tone that it was intense. Sometimes Zex sounded defensive. Sometimes he sounded excited. Sometimes he sounded frustrated. When it was over, Zex sat down heavily. Well, Jake asked. They are recalling me for questioning, but not for the reasons I expected. What do you mean? My report has caused a significant debate among the council. About half of them think I have been compromised and that my observations are worthless. And the other half? Zex smiled. The other half think I might have discovered something revolutionary about intelligence and civilization. So what happens now? I have to go back and present my findings in person. They want me to defend every claim I made. And if you convince them, then humanity might receive the most valuable gift the Kithera have ever given to another species, which is time. We would place Earth under our protection while your species continues to develop. No interference, but also no external threats. Jake felt a surge of hope. And if you do not convince them, then Earth gets classified as a failed evolution. Complete isolation until your species either solves its problems or destroys itself. The next week passed quickly. Zex prepared for his departure while Jake,